Hi everybody, welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media accounts, my columns at the Colorado Springs Independent. They're on hold again, but you can still see the old ones there. Just do a Google search for Hiking Bob or Bob Falcone and you'll find me in there and look through those. And occasionally in my newsletters. In any case, check me out there. Also, you can send me an email if you have a suggestion for a topic or a guest that you'd like to have on here. And also you can sign up for my free newsletter. And don't forget to check out my photography website. With the holidays coming up, there's some good opportunities there for you to pick up a really nice, artful gift for somebody for the holiday season. Today we're doing something a little bit different with the podcast. We're once again out in the field, and the podcast starts at 9 a.m. on a recent Saturday morning. So it's about 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning in October, and I am riding along today, and we'll be following along all day today, with Forest Service Law Enforcement Officer Earl Huey, who's based out of the Pikes Peak Ranger District of the Pike and San Isabel and Comanche and Cimarron Grasslands National Forest. And today we're going to be riding along with him and getting an idea of what it's like to be a Forest Service law enforcement officer and how it might be different than being a city cop or a deputy sheriff or a state patrol officer. So Earl, thank you for having me on board today.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're riding up I-25 right now in his patrol vehicle, which is a pretty well-equipped and large four-door pickup truck. It says law enforcement on it. It's a fully marked vehicle like you'd expect from any other vehicle. And we're going to go to the monument area and take a look at some stuff there and then travel along and see what else we find today. So we just follow us along and we'll just kind of let you know what it's like to be a day in the life of a Forest Service law enforcement officer. We head up to the town of Monument and from there up Mount Herman Road. We drive by an open field on Red Rocks Road at the base of Mount Herman to check for campers who stay past a 14-day limit for camping in a national forest. The Forest Service referred to this as taking up residence in the forest and is one of the most significant problems, and not only the Pike and San Isabel National Forest, but other forests as well. Huey says an increase in law enforcement officers in the Pike National Forest has increased their visibility, and some crimes, such as vehicle burglaries, along with cracking down on people taking up residence in the forest, are down. There are a number of cars parked in the field and a few tents in the forest across the street, but none have been there longer than 14 days. A car parked just off the road with a camper trailer hitched to it gets Huey's attention. It's a new, fairly expensive car with a rather old camper hook to it, and the license plate on the camper is expired. Since it's obviously not being used at the moment and could possibly be in transit after being purchased, and no one is around to talk to check on it, Huey decides not to pursue the issue for the time being. He doesn't see any other red flags, so he starts up the drive up Mount Herman. A usually popular and busy trail, the Mount Herman Trailhead parking area, which has room for 6 or maybe 7 cars at most, is full, and fortunately without anyone parked in the narrow road. Huey notes that some people just park wherever they can find a place when the trailhead they are heading for is full. He says people should always have a plan B in case their destination is full and not risk getting a ticket or towed. As we continue up Mount Herman Road towards Rampart Range Road, we drive by a few places where there have been people who stayed longer than the 14-day limit. He checks on those spots to make sure they are not occupied again. At one point we stop on the road where a few hundred feet away we can see a couple of tents, a spot that Huey's had to deal with in the past. So we've been driving up Mount Herman Road, and we've encountered a couple of camps, and we're checking one out because Officer Huey believes that this is a camp that's been here more than the 14-day limit. So we're walking in now to check on it. A couple of tents set up. We don't see anything else here, and I'm going to try and make contact with some people here. It's about 10:20 in the morning. The site looks abandoned. It's littered with a lot of trash, cans, bottles, debris. Tag that was here last time the officer was here to indicate that the site needed to be cleaned up. It's a pretty ugly mess, to be honest with you.
I'll document all this. I'll take some photos of it. Send the location to Joshua Vonlow. He's our volunteer coordinator, who will reach out to our volunteer groups like Focus on the Forest. They'll try to arrange a cleanup and get this out of here before it gets too messy and the bears send it down the hill or the wind or whatever.
Right.
So we can get it out of here. It's a mess. And actually, this isn't even really a designated area. It's actually off route, so people are driving in here.
Okay.
So we'll probably end up putting boulders or something at the top, fencing it off. Because if we continue to let it happen, then it's just going to continue to go down the hill further and further and push back. And
we're kind of on this little knoll. It's kind of a clearing that everything drops off pretty steeply from here in some directions. So this site, you pointed out your tag that's attached to this one tent.
Yeah.
So this has pretty much been untouched since last time you were here?
I don't see any nothing's really moved. So what I'll usually do is I'll come in here. If I suspect they might come back, I'll tag it so that they know, hey, this needs to get cleaned up and get out of here. It's kind of a warning notice. And then if I come back, and I'll double check on it. This was about a week and a half or so ago that I tagged this, and I had a suspicion that they weren't going to be coming back. So
yeah.
I'll probably look around, see if there's any identifying paperwork that has some kind of names or something like that I can go off of for evidence to see who might have left this behind. And if we come across them again later on the forest, then I can charge them for this, for abandoning all their stuff. Sanitation issues, obviously.
It's quite the mess. There's a couple of batteries, lead acid batteries here, and
there's diapers.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're adult diapers or not. I'm not going to dig too further into that.
What a mess. This is what happens up here, people. People leave their crap behind, and then Forest Service has to come and clean it up. And it's not pretty.
I did.
We've even noticed there's a couple of motion detector solar powered lights up here, so they were trying to light this place up at night, or maybe surprise people coming to sneak up on them, or something like that. As we're walking around here, there's trash that's spread out from the campground and campsite. It's not a campground. Earl has told me that this is not even where camping is legal, even though dispersed camping is allowed. This is not one of those areas. And a lot happens when bears and other animals come through here, digging through here, and then start spreading this trash around looking for food. The tents are full of various garbage, just stuff left behind, cans, diapers. Look like there were kids who lived here at one time, and this has been left behind, and now it's up to the Forest Service to clean it up, and it is quite the mess. So we just left that scene, and let's describe it a little bit there. There was a large amount of, there was a couple of tents, unfortunately, a large amount of trash. Looked like they had kids there at one point.
Definitely.
And you were telling me that you posted this like about a week ago, that this had to be cleared out. Is that correct?
Probably a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it was right before we started the burn.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that goes back a few weeks. It's still here. Do you think, does it look to you like anybody's been here since then, or has it just been abandoned?
No, sir. I think it's abandoned. From my experience, they just left it out here.
Okay.
And again, we'll have to go back and clean it up. We usually have some good volunteers that come help us out. If we had to clean all this stuff up by ourselves, we wouldn't get anything done.
Yeah.
But no, there's toys, like children toys in the tent, diapers everywhere. So you had some kind of family here.
Right.
And in my experience, they were living out here. That maybe in between homes or something like that.
Right.
A couple of tents, a lot of their private, personal, items and stuff like that were left behind. So I'm not 100% sure whatever happened to this family. I'll definitely follow up and see if I can find them, or maybe run across them again somewhere else on the forest. or even see if some of the locals might know who they are.
Okay.
I'll reach out to there's places that help with homelessness. I'll reach out to them, see if they might know this person. We found some mail down there, as you know, with a couple different names to the same address. I'll follow up on that address as well. And I'll give, like I said, give our volunteer coordinator a call and see if we can get this cleaned up as soon as possible. It's going to be winter, soon.
Right.
So definitely would like to get it cleaned up before snow hits, or else it just makes it, a longer time before we can get it cleaned up.
So we were talking that, just me looking at this and the situation here, a couple of solar panels hooked to some batteries, hooked to an inverter. Not hard to see that they were living here. Some of the documents we found, without going into details, seem to indicate that they may have hit a financial bump or something like that. Is that kind of typical to what you find when you do make contact with these people and talk to them and find out why they're living up here?
It's pretty common. They a lot of times they're in between jobs or in between homes. Maybe they were renting a home, that home got sold out from under them, whatever. I've had that situation. Mm-hmm. I've had breakups where a wife and a husband separated and there's kids involved, so there's nowhere else to go, no family to help them or whatever. And maybe they lost their job, they have no income at the time, they need somewhere to go, and where else is better than and it's kind of hidden, as you can see.
Right.
And, if you're just driving the road here, you wouldn't really see it. So, where else better to hide and camp out for a while till you can get some income going or something like that. But yeah, I've come across that quite a bit up here. And
we're back here a ways. So, you got to want it to be this far up the road. We're kind of way back up a Mount Herman Road, and kind of out in the boonies. And I'm sure that during the spring and summer, this is probably a pretty pleasant place to be, but you wouldn't want to be here.
Yes.
In the winter.
Yeah. Definitely not in the winter.
So you have some discretion, I imagine, in how you proceed from here. You're going to do an investigation. You mentioned earlier you're going to go and try to track down these folks and find out what the story is. This site's pretty trashed, mm-hmm. and I'm not sure. I don't know if it's the worst site you've seen, the best site you've seen, pretty average for a trash site. What's your tolerance level when you find some people living in a where they're not supposed to be in the forest, extending past their 14-day limit, and when you see a site like this where the people not only did that but they left it pretty trash? Where do you go with that? How's your tolerance level for how you deal with somebody in a situation like that?
I have a fairly low tolerance level when it comes to sanitation issues.
Okay.
All right, that leads to us having to get volunteers out here and clean up. That's a whole day right there. Bears and squirrels and all your critters getting into the trash and leading it down the hill, and it just looks a complete mess. And my job out here is to look after the forest.
Right.
And when it looks like that upsets me. I don't like that. I have zero tolerance for sanitation. If I do come across though a camp that's down on their luck like these guys, and it was a well-kept camp, they have everything trashed up, maybe they take the trash off on their own, and I have no other, there's no arrest warrants, there's no other violations being made, then I'll give them that, benefit of the doubt, give them the 14-day stay, let them stay here, but they have to get their stuff and cleaned off and get off the Pike within that 14-day period.
Okay.
But if it's sanitation issues and I'm having more violations on top of that, then yeah, I'll definitely write for the sanitation. Will they be able to pay for a sanitation citation? Probably not. Will they show up to court? Probably not. But at least I've done my part.
Right.
And let them know, hey, we take this stuff very seriously.
Kind of setting a paper trail in case there's future violations.
Exactly. Yes. And that way, also, if my fellow LEOs in another district, they look the people up and they see, oh, they've had sanitation issues. Maybe I just warned them.
Right.
Well, we've had sanitation with you in the past over on Officer Huey's side of town, and now you're doing it over here. Well, now you're going to get the citation because you've already been talked to about it.
Gotcha.
So,
and I think that even the general public who encounter something like this would probably feel the same way if they see somebody in a campsite, and maybe it looks like they've been there a little long, but the place is clean. They're going to be less inclined to be too upset about that than
exactly, yeah.
Than a place that's trash. Because I think it's certainly my feeling when you see some place that's just destroyed. And this one, we were looking at Wow, some of this stuff is spread out. It looks like bears have probably gotten into it.
Absolutely.
And none of this, if it's not healthy for humans, is probably not healthy for the wildlife.
Exactly.
That's
not their ordinary diet. So.
Yeah. Trust me, it's not on anybody's diet. It's pretty disgusting back there. So that's we've been on this patrol for about an hour and a half. We encountered this. It's I would like to say that this is probably unusual, but from your telling me this is pretty much the norm for you, that you find this quite a bit.
Quite the norm, yes. So when we find it, like I said, I put the warning notice as soon as I found it. We try to find it and nip it in the bud before it gets too big and out of control. Right. And we can actually contact the people before they've moved on and abandoned their camp. Then it makes it a little easier for us. Then we don't have to go back and clean up after them.
Gotcha.
A lot of times we can hold those citations over their head and say, hey, if this isn't cleaned up by such and such time, and I come back and it's still this way, you're going to be given a citation. They don't want that. But unfortunately, with this camp, I was not able to make contact with the people that were here.
So it's possible that they abandoned this even long before you first found it.
It could have been, but it looked pretty fresh when I tagged it the first time. There was fresh tire marks going in. It wasn't the sanitation that you see outside of the tents right now. There was still stuff inside, but it wasn't near as bad as you see it now.
So it's even possible that some of the stuff got spread out by the animals.
It could be.
Because those tents are pretty, the one has a hole right through the roof of it, so probably they got in there. Well, I would like to say that we won't see any more of this, but something tells me we probably will as we go on through the rest of the day.
Yeah. I do have another camp I need to check on, and you'll get to see that one as well.
Okay.
I just need to make sure nobody's in there or nobody has moved back in, because we do have Focus on the Forest coming out to clean that one up, and hopefully before winter hits.
And our friends at Focus on the Forest do a great job of volunteering and cleaning up this Rampart Range Road and just the entire Pike District, so they do a great job at that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's go see what else we can find.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. After leaving the site, we continue on Mount Herman Road to another site that Huey wanted to check on. When we got there, we encounter a couple and their dog camping at the site. Huey tells him that he was just checking in to make sure that the previous occupants of the site had not returned. The couple and their dog are friendly and tell Huey that the area was very quiet overnight and that they only heard one car go by. They plan on staying for another night or two before leaving. After a few minutes of chatting, we get back on the road, and shortly after, we get to the end of Mount Herman Road and we start north on Rampart Range Road. So we've got to the end of Mount Herman Road and have encountered Rampart Range Road, and we're encountering a camper and truck that Earl has said he's encountered before and have been staying in the forest longer than allowable and is constantly moving from one point to another. The truck has Colorado license plates, and the camper's an older RV. It probably tows the pickup truck, and a couple of loud barky dogs. He's made contact with the people in the camper and have asked them to come out but leave their dogs inside. We've radioed this in to dispatch, let them know where we're at, the vehicle plate, and they've confirmed it belongs to this truck. So far everything's going so good. I'm hanging back, just letting him do his job and waiting for the person to come out so we can contact them. Okay, the dogs have escaped the truck. One of them is going after. Hey, back. One of the dogs has come after me. Now the other dog. And the owners called them away. Now. Earl's had to pull out his taser to scare the dogs. He has not deployed it. Earl is discussing with them the situation, and I'm going to turn off the recorder for now. We'll pick it up when we get back in the truck. So we just encountered a person that you've encountered with. You've how do I want to word this? You've run into his camper. I guess he could tell the story better. You've seen his camper at different parts of the forest. You've left messages for him. You've talked to, I think, him on the phone, or at least his significant other on the phone. Is that correct?
Yes, I've actually ran into him the past 2 years, actually, up on the forest, off and on, and I've actually sighted this person before. Just a couple of days ago, I was actually able to talk with his wife. Unfortunately, his wife's in not a very good situation, health-wise. But at the same time, they're still illegally living on the forest. They're using the forest for residential purposes. So on multiple occasions, wherever I've seen this trailer, usually the wife doesn't answer. Fortunately, she answered the other day, but I usually leave a warning notice on the door with my card to call me, and I haven't got any response from this person. I have cited him, like I said before, and he took care of that citation. But I mean, you continue to do this, it begins to be a problem, and I can't allow everybody to live up on the forest. So what I did this time is, considering he's been doing this for a while now. Right. I've already cited him once, and that didn't work. So I wrote him for a mandatory appearance, just to kind of maybe make it a little, put it on a broader spectrum, and he can talk to our attorney and stuff like that. So
you wrote him a citation. He has to go to court on this citation.
Yes.
You just can't mail in a check and say, I'm done with it. He has to actually appear in court for this one.
Yes, sir.
So I chatted with him a little bit. His name was Mike. And he kind of told me his story. Let me see how it aligns with the story he's told you. He's here now because apparently there's a problem with this RV that he's using to live in. So he says he's got a mechanical problem. And the story he tells me was he's a Colorado native, came to Florida about 6 years ago for a job, and it turns out his employer was a less than desirable person. It turns out his employer was selling, the way he described it to me, meth-laced marijuana to juveniles.
Ooh.
Which has sent him to prison, the way he told me the story. So he ends up without a job. He moves in with another person in Divide, just down the street a little ways. That person decides to move and sell everything, so he ends up being here. He's given this RV. And, you know, it's kind of like the story we've heard, we kind of talked about with the campsite. We saw people on hard times. He wants to go to a place in Peyton where his current boss lives, so he can use his property, but he's got, Peyton's a long way from here, on the other side of El Paso County, basically. And I think, I don't know, are we even in El Paso County?
We are,
might be in just barely in El Paso County. I think from here we could probably throw a rock into Teller County.
Pretty close.
Yeah, so that's the story he tells me, and to a degree you want to feel a little sympathetic towards him, but on the other hand, it sounds like you've given him plenty of opportunities, and it's really time to just move along. Is that?
Yep.
Pretty much where we're at?
Plenty of notice, and even before I wrote him his first citation, I gave him plenty of warning. I explained to him what's, the line between the 14-day stay limit and the using the National Forest System land for residential purposes.
Right.
So he's well educated on that. I've given him plenty of time. Like I said, it's been off and on for a couple of years now. So now it's that time. Okay, what do we do now? Do we write him for another forfeiture amount, and then maybe he pays it, maybe he doesn't? He did pay the last one. I mean, that's fairly cheap rent to live out somewhere.
Right.
If you want to put it in that category. So this time I kind of want to open his eyes a little more. Let him know, hey, we're serious about this. No living out here on the forest. So I wrote him a mandatory so we can speak to him face to face with our attorney. Basically, is what I want to do.
And what kind of leeway does that give the U.S. attorney when they deal with him?
They could fine him, or maybe possibly tell him, okay, we'll put you on a 1 year kind of a probation, I guess you'd say. Maybe you have to be off the Pike National Forest for a certain amount of time. If you break this agreement or whatever, maybe there'll be more consequences.
Kind of like a suspension or an eviction or something.
Like that. So that's what I'll probably push for, just to keep him off the Pike and let him know how serious we are about this. The reason why I'm being fairly lenient about this is there is no mess. He doesn't have any sanitation problems. We don't have any arrest warrants with him. His dogs did kind of come at me pretty quick.
I did have that on tape. It sounded a little scary there for a minute.
I absolutely love dogs, but I can't stand when their owner can't keep them contained. But and that happens quite a bit. I've actually had a fellow law enforcement officer just get bit here a while back on the Gunnison.
Right.
So I mean, it happens. People out here that don't have the dogs on leash and stuff like that.
Sure.
So, But yeah, that's the gist of it.
And looking at the his campsite, it was spotless. We had to be fair, he had a little generator running behind it. It wasn't a very loud one. They've made them so quiet, but he did keep his place spotless. So at least, going to give any kudos to anything, he did. His place isn't a dump and it's not a trash pit, and it seems like he cleans up after himself. But we still have this issue. He's still where he's
Living
not supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are your gut feeling? What do you think is gonna? You think he's gonna get the message when he goes to meet the U.S. Attorney? You think he's finally gonna get the word and maybe move on out?
I'm hoping that I can work with our AUSA and speak with the attorney and maybe give him some kind of probation period where he can't be on the forest at all for a certain amount of time. Does he come back after that? Maybe. It's who knows? Getting a place here in Colorado Springs area is not very easy.
Right.
It's not cheap.
He did tell me he's trying to buy land, but he's looking further west from here, out in South Park.
And I hope he does. I really do. I always wish these people the best, but I got to do my job.
So. Right. And in my chatting with him, he seemed like a pretty nice guy. He didn't seem like he was too upset with encountering you or anything like that, but maybe not quite getting the message.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next adventure. Let's go see what's next. Thanks.
All right.
After our encounter with Mike, we go a little further down the road to another site that Huey has had to deal with and is now slated for cleanup. And yes, those are gunshots you will hear in the background. More on that later. So we're at a site that there's a camper towed behind camper up here. It's pretty trashed. The whole area is pretty trashed. You said you've had encounters with the people here before that have not gone well?
Yes, we did have 3 felony arrest warrants here. One of them being identity theft, the other one for narcotics. I think the other one was the same. But they were just, you could tell they'd been here a while. They were in here for the long haul, residing out of the camper trailer. There was no vehicles up here. And once we got to talking to them, they said that one of their friends had brought it up here for them to stay. And they had expected him to come back and help them get out of here. But as you can see, I don't think they were planning on getting out of here anytime soon. It's a lot of personal property and just a huge mess.
So it's been a while since you last encountered them up here, so they've been gone for a little bit?
Yeah, we encountered them probably mid-July. We just haven't been able to get this cleaned up and get it out of here yet.
Okay.
It's just one of our many that I just keep checking in on, making sure nobody's come back. 2 of them were still in jail. Last I checked, one had just got out here recently, and the other one possibly still in El Paso County Jail, but I'll have to check on that.
But they apparently not returned. This place
No, they have not returned.
And much like the other place we talked about a little bit ago, where we found the abandoned tents and stuff, it's just a dump.
This one even more so.
Yeah, this is even worse. There's a gas-powered weed whacker. I'm looking at what I think is a refrigerator.
That right there on the left, there is a refrigerator on the right, but on the left is actually a clothes washer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of those like small, really small washers. And then on top, not sure what that is, maybe a freezer or something.
Yeah.
Just a lot of stuff for living, for the long haul.
And this is stuff that it wasn't, traditionally not something Forest Service had to deal with, was cleaning up stuff like this. But it's become more the norm.
Yeah, I believe so. I couldn't talk for my predecessor, but I'm pretty sure it's wasn't near as bad as it was before.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in the past you would deal with people leaving their picnic stuff behind, but not their entire living quarters.
Yeah, believe it or not, I just had somebody leave their family urn behind. But I'm not surprised at what I see when I come across it out here anymore.
Right.
I don't think any of our staff is. It used to be, you'll never believe what I saw out there today, and then now it's like, another camp, or another urn, or another shot-up target that was dumped, or something like that.
Yeah. All right, and we'll talk about the one encounter we just had in a little bit. We'll go backwards in time and talk about that, but I shouldn't be amazed, but I still am with what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And
your warning stickers on the back, so they were served you did leave an official warning they had to vacate.
Yeah, and both the 2 parties that we cited for that got arrested, one went to El Paso County, another one went to Teller County. I gave one for giving me false identification. She was actually giving me her sister's identification. I won't give them names. The other one was I wrote them for residing, because obviously they were up here residing. They tried to lie to me.
Right.
And say they weren't, which it's pretty obvious. I got it out of the other two people that were here that, yes, they were staying for quite a while. And then haven't seen either one of them. They've both showed up on the court docket. They haven't shown up. I want to say the guy at El Paso County has been out too, but I'll double check on that.
Okay.
So where they're at now, who knows? It's going to be hard to try to find them and pin this mess and this abandoned camp trailer on them. This camp trailer is actually not even registered to that gentleman. So
you have focus on the forest coming up here to help clean this up.
Yes, sir.
What about the camper? I mean, do they have the facilities for that, or is that something the Forest Service arranges? They have somebody comes up here with a flatbed or something to take this thing out of here?
Yes, and perhaps I can take you to what I call my boneyard, where we do have a lot of this that happens, where they'll leave their camp trailers up here. It's maybe they've got a good deal from somebody in town and they don't register it, so that now there's no name to track on it,
right.
Except for the previous owner, and they'll leave it up here, just a mess. And so you'll see I have quite a few down at what I call my boneyard at the work center. And what will end up happening is it's on the district to get rid of somehow, whether it's crushing it, making scrap metal, disposing of it in a dumpster or something like that. And we've got rid of a lot of them that way too.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking at these things, this camper, and I'm thinking, if you see one come up on an auction, you don't want to buy it.
Oh no, especially if you looked inside, it's not pretty.
I'm not going near it.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't ask you to.
Looks pretty bad. All right. Well. Another unfortunate scene here, and why do I get the feeling we're still probably going to see some more of these?
You might.
Okay.
You might. I might try to switch directions to target shooting or something like that, so we can change subject here.
And we've been listening to target shooting going on while we've been out on this road. So.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
We'll leave that site and head further north on Rampart Range Road. In the Pikes Peak Ranger District, recreational shooting isn't allowed in a swath of land that can be generally described as being between Highway 67 to the west, I-25 to the east, Highway 24 to the south, and Mount Herman Road to the north. Once past Mount Herman Road, we hear gunfire and encounter a few people in a few different groups target shooting. While target shooting is allowed, there are rules that need to be followed and not everyone is aware of or is abiding by the rules, and Huey stops to talk with the shooters. After that, we changed direction and went south on Rampart Range Road to the area of Rainbow Gulch, where we encountered some people who were where they were not supposed to be. So we spent a little bit of time on Rampart Range Road. We encountered some campers and some homeless camps. We talked about those and some pretty bad-looking things that were left behind. But the other thing that area is known for is the recreational shooting. And we encountered a couple people. We stopped and talked to them about the recreational shooting. So let's talk a little bit about that. Number one, I guess people may not realize it's right now that's legal to shoot in that area. There's a certain mileage from Guard of the Gods up to up past the reservoir where you can't do any shooting, but after that you can do recreational shooting. So let's talk about the what is the recreational shooting rules on Rampart Range Road.
Yeah, so the restricted areas are, like you said, it's actually Mount Herman Road down all the way to Garden of the Gods, and Mount Herman Road down to Monument that we had restricted. But a lot of our regulations and restrictions are, a lot of it's common sense. Shooting into an earthen backstop, not shooting our trees and putting your targets into the trees. We do have an order for illegal targets such as glass bottles and aluminum cans, things that are not manufacturally made specifically for target shooting. But I catch a lot of that up there, and a lot of times I didn't know. People grew up shooting cans and bottles and whatnot. But then outside of the cans and bottles, we have televisions and dryers and washers and stuff like that are being dropped off. Just as you experienced earlier, they were shooting a dresser.
Right.
All right. So they claimed they were going to pick it up and clean it up and leave out. But in my experience, and I wasn't going to accuse them of this, but in my experience, does that happen? No, a lot less often than
Probably not.
not.
Yeah.
It usually gets left behind, and we have to end up cleaning it up. But that's what most of our regulations are. Is the biggest ones using an earthen backstop. And when you were up there with me, what kind of backstop did they have? They really had none.
None. They were shooting downhill into a valley, and unfortunately, as you point out to a couple of them, their backstop was the trees. So they were shooting in the live growth trees down there.
Yeah.
And some of that's fairly old growth stuff too.
And from what I pointed out to those parties that we contacted, I said, look around, you see these trees, and I showed it to them. These trees are going to fall. All these trees within this line of fire are going to fall. They're all dead. So yeah, unfortunately, that's what they think is their earthen backstop, but that's not an earthen backstop. An earthen backstop is something we want to make sure there's no vegetation. There's no way of ricochets or the bullet's going to travel uphill or stay above ground as it's traveling downhill, down valley. I also pointed out to those parties that across the ridge from us, straight in the same direction they're shooting, is another road.
Right.
Between 300U and 300V. So, and I've been back there before, searching for things and making contacts, and in a place where I thought, oh man, they were probably shooting my way.
Right.
So just educated them on that, and they asked, well, do you want us to stop shooting here? And typically I'll tell them, yes, I would like for you to stop shooting here, and I will show them places such as Turkey Track Range as to where is a better place to shoot.
And where's that range at?
Turkey Track Range is up north of Woodland Park off of Highway 67.
Okay.
Not far from Rainbow Falls Recreation Area, just a little bit past that on the left side. And we have lanes set up, and eventually that's going to turn into our designated target shooting area for this district. And we'll have engineers go out there and construct lanes so that more people can shoot more safely. We'll have long distance, short distance pistol ranges, clay ranges, stuff like that is what the idea is.
So when we encountered those people, the reactions we got were, for the most part, they didn't give you an argument about it. The one guy absolutely did not give you an argument about it. He was up there with his son, and he seemed to be pretty, he accepted the information you were giving him and the guidance stuff. The other folks, not necessarily so much, and they weren't outright hostile, but you can tell that they kind of wanted to do what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Is that typical what you see when you encounter people up there and you talk to them about where they're shooting and what they're doing?
Typically, the people I approach are the second party.
Okay.
We were talking about was the ones that were more receptive to the education.
Right.
And I didn't really think about it that way. Thank you. They're apologetic and they want to do what's right.
Okay.
The first party we contacted, the one that you said was kind of nodding his head at me, and that's also got to do with a previous contact I had with that individual.
Okay.
So there was already some issues there. I recognized them right when I pulled up. But yeah, typically my target shooting community is acceptable to the education that I give to them or whatever it may be. If it's something worse than what I saw today, I will write tickets for it. If they're shooting unsafely, which I guess I could have argued, shooting downhill, down valley, that could be considered unsafe if there's a camp that's beyond all that they don't know about.
Right.
But if it's something radical, I'll definitely cite for the unsafe shooting, which is a mandatory appearance. So.
And for the people you encountered, you gave them warnings, written warnings, just to document they were there. Didn't seem like there was much of an issue with that, but obviously, like you said, the first couple of gentlemen we ran into, not super receptive, not outwardly hostile. The second couple of guys we ran into were much more, gee, thanks for the education. But most of the people are like the second group. They just want to, sometimes you just have to remind them of what they're doing out there. So there's a plan coming up for recreational shooting in that area. Can you tell us what that plan looks like that's coming up?
So basically this plan is going to have specific primary designated target shooting areas on my district specifically, and for the whole Pike National Forest, but my district specifically will be no shooting outside of those designated areas. And we're going to try to come up with a secondary place up on Gold Camp, 370I, maybe another possible area, but that's still in the works. We're hoping to have a second spot so that our recreational target shooters can have a place to go. But yeah, Turkey Track Range will be the designated area for my district. It will be set up in a way such as we can hold more people. It'll be safer for everybody. There'll be berms set up, everything. So it's all right now within the NEPA process, and we're getting surveyors out there and stuff like that. And then, hopefully soon we can turn that way so that we don't keep popping up with these places such as you saw today on Rampart Range Road, where the trees are all dead and dying and broke down. And
just chopped in half by gunfire.
Yeah, and we're not having to go out there and clean up thousands of pounds of target shooting litter and stuff like that. So I really look forward to that movement. I think it's a good move for the future of this forest. I think it'll definitely help to keep our forest clean and keep it how we want it, for our future kids and stuff like that are coming along.
Do you have a timeline for when we might see that change come?
Honestly, Bob, I don't.
Okay.
That would definitely be something to ask our NEPA planner, and maybe even reach out to our district ranger, ask maybe a better timeline. I couldn't really give you one right now. I do know that in my mind I'd like to see it sooner than later, but things have to go through a process.
So to be clear, when that happens, other than hunting with a valid hunting license and season and all that kind of qualifiers, there will be no more recreational shooting, with the exception of the designated ranges that the Forest Service is going to build and establish in there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a management plan for how those are they just going to be open? Will there be staff there, or is that still stuff that you're still working on down the road?
I think that's still stuff we're working on. Maybe have a host at the firing range or something like that. But for now, as long as we get that firing range in place, then have, forest protection officers, myself, staff go in there and just, constantly, maybe on a daily basis, just go fly the flag through there, make sure everything's going all right.
Okay.
And there's still a lot of questions up in the air about it, so it's a process, but it's kind of slow moving right now.
Well, that's the purpose of this whole process that you're going through, is to set up all these different things, I imagine. Moving on from there, after we got done there, we encountered a couple other people who were camping. And just real briefly, you ended up with a motor vehicle violation. The vehicle was off-road, and as we noticed, kind of to my astonishment, you're just kind of mild amusement, because you see this a lot. They drove right past a sign that said no motor vehicles and ended up on this campground. Nice, and to be fair, again, nice campsite, nice fire pit, very safe, very clean, but their vehicle obviously was 200, 300 feet down a road where it had no business being.
Exactly.
We got them out of there. You got them out of there. It ended up writing a citation. I think it was an expired registration. Do you see that kind of motor vehicle kind of violation pretty often up there?
We do. Actually, a lot of people, and they blame it on, well, I didn't know, or I didn't see the sign.
Right. Which is exactly what she said.
Exactly. Yeah. So I took the picture of the sign with her vehicle right beyond that sign. They obviously took that path in, and there was not just that one sign. There was two signs there. And what we're trying to do is keep it to where they don't drive off this route so many times. Now we have this road going down there, and then eventually the road's going to push further down the hill and create more problems and more issues and disturb more vegetation. So what I did write her for the being off the route instead of the registration.
Instead of the registration, okay.
So I could have wrote for both, but her tags were expired since March. So warned her on that. I understand some people maybe, I don't know, some people blame it on the DMV, whatever it may be. I still think it's
an easy target, so I could get it.
Yeah, exactly. So we do see a lot of off-road stuff, and as you get on this forest a lot more, you'll see our staff, our recreation staff, and everybody doing their due diligence by putting in boulders where maybe somebody had pulled off and they're creating a new route. So we've got boulders being put in place. We've got signs being put in place. Like you saw today, they drove past our sign. So I'm going to go to the district and I might ask them, hey, maybe we should put a couple of boulders or something like that in too.
Right.
Just to be, keep the honest. honest, you know.
And for those wondering about this road, the road was pretty steep for several hundred feet to a level spot where there was a campground. Then from there it dropped off again. So, and it was eroded. I mean, you could see where it was going straight down with no turns and no mitigation. The reason why it's closed is because of that erosion.
Exactly.
That's there. It's not closed just because willy-nilly somebody said we don't want cars here. But the way that road went, obviously that became an issue, and it was eroded, and that just increases erosion, which is why that looked like it was closed.
They go in, they damage that vegetation, and that causes the erosion.
Right.
So it's, and if one person does it, then they see another person comes behind them, sees the 2-track, and they follow suit.
Right.
The next thing you know, we got a road back there. So that's one of the biggest issues. I'd say that's one of our issues up on, especially Rampart Range Road.
Yeah.
I think we're doing a pretty good job of mitigating that up here on Gold Camp.
Okay.
But as you can see where we're sitting right now, there is, we got a sign out there, no motor vehicle sign, but in this meadow here, we got, somebody went off road right here through the creek. So.
And right now we're off of Gold Camp Road, and we're basically sitting in front of the gate for the South Slope Recreation Area. Where there's some roads up here, and unfortunately we have seen some trails going through these meadows where there's no road. There's just people driving through them, and that's kind of a shame to see that. I'll just go back to one more thing with that: the people we encountered who were off road. We did not go off road. We parked at the top of the hill, walked down to them, and had a chat with them. So we stayed up on the road. But what was kind of surprised me was their utter shock to be told that they were someplace they were not supposed to be, and it's just kind of interesting how that evolved. But I chatted with the one person while you were dealing with the driver of the vehicle, and I thought that they came away from that maybe not happy they got a citation for being off, but
it's never a fun day when you get a ticket.
Oh, it's never fun, but they seem to be okay with you, with their interaction with you.
And that's typically the case. And I'll be honest with you, Bob, that citation on our side is a $250 citation.
Ouch.
But I mean, if you're a reasonable person, you see a sign that says no motor vehicles, this road does not look like an established road. Had that sign not been there, maybe I would have just given a warning.
Right.
But you can definitely tell that's not a road that's acceptable, and it's not on our motor vehicle use map. And it's also signed, so I didn't want to let that one go.
Kind of like you've been warned and you did it anyway, kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of thing there.
Okay, so we're heading down Gold Camp Road for the rest of this patrol today, and it's been a beautiful day for a drive and for a patrol. We've encountered some people, and a little less busy than I anticipated for a fairly warm and beautiful mid-October day. I thought we'd see more people out here, but we've seen a lot of hunters. We just passed a camp where there must have been 20 or 30 hunters all gathered around their trucks, probably calling it quits for the day, I guess, or maybe they're going out. I don't know much about hunting.
Yeah, well, maybe going back out.
Maybe going back out because it's getting late.
Too far.
Yeah, it's getting kind of late.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Earl, thanks, and let's go see what other.
Let's patrol on.
And here comes somebody up the road ready to encounter a locked gate. So we'll see what happens here. All right. We'll talk to y'all later. If you're listening closely, you may have caught that when we recorded that last segment, we had moved off of Rampart Range Road, and we were then on Gold Camp Road, which connects the towns of Victor and Cripple Creek to Colorado Springs, and essentially we were making a very big loop. When we did that recording, we were at the gated entrance to Colorado Springs' South Slope Recreation Area after checking the road up to it for campers and four-wheelers. After that, we continued down Gold Camp Road and then Old Stage Road as it got later into the day. We did encounter another set of shooters on the side of Gold Camp Road, but as opposed to the earlier shooters we encountered on Rampart Range Road, these shooters were actually shooting safely. They were shooting into the side of a hill and were using only approved targets. Huey stopped to chat with them for a few minutes and thanked them for being safe and responsible shooters. A little further down on Old Stage Road, we stopped at a Halloween trunk or treat event that Huey was invited to, and then after that continued back to Colorado Springs, ending the day at about 6 p.m. In some ways, the job of a Forest Service law enforcement officer isn't much different from that of any other law enforcement officer. You patrol an area, check to make sure people are behaving properly, interact with the public, write traffic tickets, follow up on investigations, and mostly just be visible. But as opposed to, for example, a police officer in the city, the loop we did was well over 100 miles, and I'm pretty sure it encompassed an area that was actually bigger than the footprint of Colorado Springs. And in the forest, fire and medical services, if they would be needed, would take a long time to arrive instead of the mere minutes it would take in Colorado Springs or Fountain or even in much of eastern El Paso County. And while a city police officer or deputy sheriff is somewhat concerned with protecting property, such as your home or business, a Forest Service officer is more concerned with protecting the natural resources such as trees, wildlife, and water than they are about man-made property. It was a great day to be out, and I'd like to thank Earl Huey for not only appearing on a previous podcast where he talked about his job, but also for being willing to have me along on a very long day and enduring my questions, comments, and me basically sticking my recorder in his face every once in a while. Thanks also to his supervisors for okaying my request and for the Public Information Office staff at the office in Pueblo for making this happen. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast.